Amazing. I'm so honored to be here. Really thankful to be invited by the folks here because as a CEO of a company called Gainsight, I'm so passionate about community. It's very important to our business, and I think it's important to all your business as well. But I actually want to share something that I hope you'll believe at the end of the talk, which is I think community is not just critical to business, it's vital to all of our lives. And I'm going to share my personal story about that today. So I'd like to talk about community to a bunch of community people. So you'll tell me if I'm right about this, but I'm going to talk about how I think about it, right? So we have a community in Gainsight, which I'll talk about. I'm very passionate about it. I see a lot of our customers have communities. I love spending time with community people. And I know there's one side of community that is about business, right? You all help drive business, and that's great. You help drive prospects and customers and engagement and bookings and active users and clicks and all these other buzzwords. You all help drive business. There's no doubt about that. And probably lots of other people in this conference have talked to you about how you can drive more business, right? But I'd like to talk about something else. Is there more to what we're all doing with our communities? And is there something that's fundamentally human about community? And I want to start by going to the definition, at least on the web, which is always right, about what community is, right? What is community, right? And so I've looked at this a whole bunch of times, and there's one definition which says a group of people living in the same place having characteristics in common. I consider that the fine but kind of boring definition of community. The one I like is a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, or goals. And that word fellowship really resonates to me. And I'll talk more about how we've built a community at Gainsight. But that word fellowship, I think, captures the essence about how community connects people together. And so what I'd like to talk about is why community is not just important in business, but vital to all of us as human beings. And I'm going to start with something maybe a little weird for a Friday morning at 9 a.m. I'm going to get a little bit vulnerable in front of all of you. Many people, tell me if you love Brene Brown, amazing, right? Yeah, everyone loves Brene Brown. Yeah, Netflix episode she did recently was amazing. And Brene's inspired all of us to bring our own vulnerability out. And actually, at the events that I do for our company, which are lots of people, I go up in front of lots of strangers like you, and I try to share, who I really am. And so I want to talk about something that's extremely vulnerable for many people, something that I think many of us have an emotional reaction to, which is I want to hear about how people felt about middle school. Raise your hand if you loved middle school and it was totally amazing the whole time. All right, there's actually a few people. The people that raise their hands are like my wife, super annoying people. My wife had an absolutely blissful childhood all the way. All of her friends, they all did everything, and she was great at school, and everything was awesome, right? And that's why she's such an awesome person. But I was maybe a little bit more normal, maybe on the other extreme side. Actually, being a little open, I was probably the opposite kid. I was that kid that unfortunately never fit in. Might be surprising being in stage now, but I was that kid from literally kindergarten through 12th grade that ate alone every single day and just never felt like I fit in elementary school, middle school, high school. I just felt weird. I felt strange. I felt like I was the outsider. I could never find my community. I never figured out where I fit in. And I was the kid who would literally get my lunch. And it was so embarrassing to eat alone that I would go find a place to hide. I'd go to the teacher's room, or I'd go to the computer lab because I just couldn't figure out where I fit in. And that's something that if you had loneliness as a kid, that stays with you your whole life. And so even to this day, I speak at a lot of conferences like this, I'm not sure people really like me still and whether I really even fit in. I'm not sure if I was just invited because, somebody wanted me here for some business reason, or like people actually really want me here, not just here, but in general. And so it's something we carry, and a lot of us carry that. I think whether we had that experience in school or not, a lot of us have that feeling of not fitting in sometimes. And there's some scary and amazing data. Loneliness is something that really affects people very significantly, and with technology, probably more than ever. So I've got a 9th grader in high school, and I'll talk more about her, but you see kids now, and the fact that loneliness is something that's only growing because we're so connected and disconnected through technology. There's just amazing stats of people feeling lonely and the effect it has on our health and effect it has on sort of our overall sense of well-being. And one of the things that inspired me to do this talk is another TED Talk that I saw called the Blue Zones Project. If you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend it. It's a very interesting TED Talk that answers a very basic question all of us would have, which is how do you live a long life? And so the researcher studied these communities throughout the world, 5 communities where people lived an unusually long period of time, like past 100 years old. And this researcher said, okay, what are the common characteristics? Do they drink less wine? Do they not smoke? Or do they eat fish? What do they do? And what was amazing was there are lots of things different people do to live a long time, but one of the most common was that in their old age, they feel a sense of community. They feel like they fit in. So this is from Okinawa, Japan, from this talk. And the old people in Okinawa don't feel like they're excluded from society. It's terrible how old people feel in the US, right? Where they don't feel like they fit in. And honestly, I think that affects their well-being. And so the question you're asking yourself is, why is this guy at 9 a.m. at a business conference talking about loneliness, right? In high school and middle school, why is he talking about that? Well, I'll share the other inspiration for this talk. Again, getting a little bit more personal. This is my wife, the amazing, blissful life throughout her whole life. And then our daughter, who just started 9th grade, this about a year ago. And we have 3 kids, and we took our daughter on a daddy, mommy, daughter date in San Francisco. We live here in the Bay Area. And our daughter is really into musical theater, and I love it as well. I love being here in this theater. It's amazing. And we took our daughter, we let her pick what she wanted to do, and we went to see a show called Dear Evan Hansen. I don't know, raise your hand if you've seen Dear Evan Hansen. Yeah. We'll play a little bit of the music.
Have you ever felt forgotten in the middle of nowhere? Have you ever felt like you could disappear? Like you could fall and no one would hear?
So this musical is about this high school student who doesn't feel like they fit in and feels like they don't have any friends and that they don't belong. And this is one of the kind of pivotal songs in the musical. It's actually about depression and sort of teenage anxiety. It's even about suicide. And yet it's actually an uplifting musical at the end. But it's something it's very, very dramatic. And it's one of those shows you go see, maybe you've seen a movie like this or a musical, and at the end, it's so emotional that you're just like covered in tears and you're looking to your right and looking to your left and you're like, am I crying? Are you crying? Like everyone's crying, right? And the reason I share this story is that this was an unbelievably transformative experience for me, because as this kid who didn't feel like he fit in, taking now my daughter, who's also kind of struggling with that loneliness, and then seeing that she was so affected by this musical because it captured the feeling she has of not feeling like she fits in sometimes. It started this whole conversation with our family about loneliness and fitting in, and it turned out our 10-year-old son, lots of times in the playground, feels like people don't want to hang out with him and feels like if he just got into Fortnite or something, people would be his friend, but he's really struggled with that. And even our now 7-year-old, who's totally bubbly and extrovert, her name's Anjali, sometimes feels like she can't make any friends either. And so this kind of got me thinking, gosh, this isn't just me and my childhood story. This is everyone's story. This is me as a kid with my little brother. It's not just me. It's everyone struggling with the same idea of do we fit in? And probably the final personal thing that I'll share is this got really, really important the last year. As my wife and I started the process, we're actually going to be adopting a child. So our 4th love turned 3 into 4. And you think about taking a kid who would have probably been on a very lonely path in their life and bringing them into our family and hoping making them feel like they fit in. And so the reason I share all this is I think that condition of loneliness really relates to what everyone here is trying to help with. And I'm going to share, the reason I know this is that at Gainsight, we've built a community that is super important to our business and super important to our revenue and all those kinds of things. But I think super important to the people in our community in terms of feeling like they fit in. So we serve a new job called Customer Success Manager. How many of you have CSMs in your company? Raise your hand. So it's a pretty hot profession now. It's the 3rd most promising job in the world according to LinkedIn. And we created a community called Pulse, and it shows up now lots of different ways. There's a big annual conference. There's local meetups in different cities. We use Bevy for that. There's an online version, et cetera. And our conference itself, which is in San Francisco every year, has really become pretty big. It's that we did it for the first time in 2013. 300 people showed up. And this past year, we did it in Moscone and had 5,500 people there. So it's become a pretty big event. And it's something that people really come back to over and over again, where they feel this sense of connection. And I'm going to talk about what we've learned from that and why I think it's not just about business and revenue and learning, but it's actually about this feeling of connection. Because at this event, we do all the normal stuff that all of you do at your events. We connect people together, we have presentations and all that kind of stuff. But we really try to be vulnerable. One of the things we do is bring our quirky culture, we have a value called childlike joy, to our community to get them to open up as human beings. We literally went so far as took the Taylor Swift song Blank Space, rewrote it for customer success, and made a music video out of it, as one does, and actually presented that to our fans, right? I've taken many occasions to be very zany with our customers in front of all these people that I don't know. In this case, wearing a football helmet on stage. We We did a series where we did carpool karaoke and sang in a car about customer success with various well-known CEOs. Backstreet Boys was our go-to there. We even, in either the greatest moment in my career or the lowest moment, we even decided it's a good idea to make a rap single about customer success, which, by the way, you can buy on Spotify. And if you bought it, it would be like the 7th person that bought the song. So, and one year at our conference, one of the other highlights personally, we had Vanilla Ice open up the conference, which, by the way, has nothing to do with community, which is freaking cool. Come on. That's awesome. But if you go to our community, has anyone here been to Pulse before? Raise your hand if you've been to Pulse, so a few people here. If you go to our events, right, you'll see all this fun stuff and great, we have amazing events people, all the things that you all do. But one of the things that really strikes me about our community is I go there and all these people in this new job that's growing fast but still is a relatively new job, they feel like they're with their people because they're asking the really vulnerable questions. They're asking, am I in the right career? Why do people not understand what I do? Because customer success is a new job. Am I even qualified for this job? Some people have imposter syndrome. Why do I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall? And when I talk to the people that come to our events and join our community, and I ask them, what was the best thing about the community? What was the best thing about the event? It's not the content. It's not the songs. It's not the fun. It's one thing over and over again for 7 years. One statement that I hear all the time, which is, I come to this community and I feel like I'm not alone. Over and over again. Because these people they're in their own companies and they're running their own lives and they feel like they don't fit in because they're kind of the new job inside their companies. And this community allows them to all feel this sense of fellowship like I talked about earlier. And so I believe, at least in our experience, that community is fundamentally about creating this sense of belonging. And I think what we've discovered in our customers is that it's not just about the mind, it's about the heart in terms of tapping into that psychic need for addressing their loneliness. And for us, it's turned into a few things. It's like recognizing that sense of belonging and really doubling down on that, being vulnerable in front of them, creating more ways for them to connect on non-business topics, making them feel safe to talk about their insecurities in this audience amongst people they've never met before. The community involves having a shared vision that we're all gonna get through this together, right? It involves us being very authentic about who we are, and that's why I try to lead from the front in terms of who I am in front of our customers. And it involves building kind of a sense of vulnerability and trust that you can be yourself at this community, right? And so it's been an amazing experience because a lot of us have been to business conferences where it's very good, it's very business-like, and we all go in and talk about how great we're doing, and we're killing it, we're crushing it, all that stuff, and we go home and we cry ourselves to sleep, right? And the truth is, honestly, those events make us feel even more lonely because the events make us feel like, what's wrong with me? Why do I have those problems and nobody else seems to have those problems? But the truth is they all have those problems. And that's the thing that I think we have a power to do. So at Gainsight, I've come to the conclusion that it's easy to run the world where you have the personal world and you've got the business world and you've got your customers and they're put walls between them. And you're gonna be very different to your customers and your community. You're gonna be very different in the office and you're gonna be very different with your family. It's very easy to do that. And that's kind of what we've been told to do. The thing that you go back to the line from the Godfather, it's not personal, it's business. That's what we've been told to do. We should not be human beings at work. We should not be human beings with our customers. We should just be business-like, right? And I personally have said, let's challenge that. With our community, let's tap into the human needs that our customers all have. And I gotta say, I know for sure that this is right, because one of the greatest business leaders of all time has a great quote about this. Some of you recognize him. Michael Scott from The Office, if you don't know, says business is the most personal thing in the world. And I think that what you all do is not just about connecting people together for sales and marketing, it's about connecting people together as human beings. And so what I challenge myself to do, and I hope all of you buy into it as well, maybe you're already doing it, is let's tear down those walls between who we are at home and who we are at work and who we are with our customers. Because our customers and our community and our members wanna meet with human beings. They don't wanna meet with business people because they wanna be human beings too. And they get so happy when they get the chance to go to a business event and be a real person. I think that's so powerful. And if you go to our events, you can see just the joy that the people have, and I'm sure you do this at your events too, the joy they have is so powerful and so infectious. And the reason I do this talk is it gives me joy, right? Our job is just like yours. It's a slog. You go through quarters and selling things and numbers and all that stuff. And the joy for me is this chance to connect with human beings. And so what I challenge all of you to do is realize and recognize that your customers, they don't just want community and networking and best practices, they want to belong. Now, some people see me do this talk and say, Nick, this is great, but we sell to big companies, we sell to big enterprises. They don't want to belong. They want to be formal. Their companies are formal. I got to tell you, my experience, maybe yours is different. Our enterprise customers want to belong more than anyone else because they're in these big, like impersonal companies where they really can't be themselves. And they come to our events and they close down the karaoke at the end of the night, literally. The IBM people can really karaoke, seriously. So one of the reasons I do this talk is because this whole concept has helped me find meaning in my work too. That's why I'm so excited to be here, because what you all do is maybe more important than you even realize. And I'll share kind of a final moment of vulnerability of what inspires this meaning for me. And it's a kind of a little funny story I'll share, again, going back to my family. So this is more folks in my family. This is my mom and dad. And they're in their 70s now, retired. My dad was a business person. My mom worked in business as well. But the best thing to know about my parents is if you've ever watched the show Seinfeld, they're like the Costanzas, but Indian. Literally, constantly bickering, but very loving, and very high expectations for their son, but also very loving. But they're very direct. If you've ever seen the Costanzas, they're very direct. They always tell you what's on their mind. My mom is extremely direct. So I took my mom and dad out to dinner about 1.5 years ago. And I was driving the car, and it's kind of special moment. I'm 42 years old. They're in their 70s, so kind of cool to be able to hang out with your parents again, long time after when we were kids. And we're driving to like P.F. Chang's or something, big night out for us. And I'm talking to my mom, and one thing you don't know about me is I'm outside of business. I'm super into like science and math and other nerdy stuff like that. And my mom is too. And so my mom is talking about that, and she's like, "This is so great that you read so much about science and math. It's awesome." And then she says, It's too bad you didn't go into science because you could have really done something important with your life. And so I'm sitting there and obviously don't really exactly know what to say. My dad is a little more polished. He was a business person, so he has a little bit more filter. He says, no, Mina, my mom's name is Mina. Mina, don't worry, no. He's only, at that time I was 40, he's only 40. He can still do something with his life. I was like, I don't know if you're helping or not, Dad. But then my mom responds immediately, says, no, he's too old. But maybe his kids can. And by the way, my kids will, so that's good. I'm all set, right? And of course, my mom is now kind of grandparenting our kids and asking about the science fairs and all that stuff. And so what this whole conversation, though, got me thinking is, what is the meaning in what I do? I didn't talk about our business, but we sell software that does great things and all that, right? But it's not like we cure cancer or like flying to Mars or something, right? We're just selling software. So what's the purpose? And so we went through this exercise, and this kind of comes up for me all the time. When I'm sitting on a United Airlines flight on a red eye to some random city, right? Many of you have done this before, right? You're sitting in like seat 9F, and you kind of get to that point, you're like, what am I doing with my life, right? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Why does this matter at all, right? And it got us into a conversation at Gainsight, because I had this conversation with our company, and said, like, what's our purpose, right? It's not just about selling software. We're doing something special with our community and our culture. It's not just selling software. What's our purpose? And so we went this conversation. We looked at different purposes. Disney has a great one, make people happy, which is generally what they do, except for the parents in line at Disney World, right? Otherwise, very, very happy. And we ran into this kind of brick wall, which goes back to this thing I said before about kind of personal and business. We ran into this wall that said, hey, we shouldn't have a purpose. Purpose doesn't matter. At the end of the day, business is about being business-like and having gravitas and not being emotional. And, employees are just assets. That's what we get told all the time. And we get told, like I showed you before, that it's not personal, it's business. But at Gainsight, we said, look, we want to have a purpose. We want some reason. And it feels like this community is some part of it. And we went back to some of you seen Simon Sinek Start With Why. And we said, what's the why behind our company? And we said, well, look, we are very into people and human beings. And we have a very set of kind of human-centric values. I'm not going to go through them, but our values are very much about human beings. And we really care about these values. And so, yeah, stay thirsty is a fun. We may have ripped that off from somebody. And so we said, look, we can't change the world. We're not curing cancer. We're not flying to Mars. But can we change the world around us? Can we change the human beings around us? Because in a small way, we touch a lot of human beings. We touch our teammates and families and customers and our community. And what can we do to help all those human beings be more human. And so what we concluded, which is kind of the core of this talk, is the reason we come to work, and this is our purpose statement at Gainsight, is to be living proof that you can win in business, you can be successful while being human first. And that's the concept that we try to drive in our company. I don't know if we'll be the most successful company of all time, but we'll be successful enough and win, but we can be human beings and maybe be proof that other people can do it too. That's what we're really passionate about, and kind of flipping that statement from the Godfather on its head. It's not business, everything is personal. Business is personal, and it ties so much to what you all do. And I'd say that as we enter this era of robots and artificial intelligence and maybe the last decade of humanity or whatever, right? Whatever we're going into now, I think we want that human being, that human community, that connection more than ever. That's why what you're doing is more important than ever. And so what I want to close with is just say, fundamentally, community is human first. It's not just about business, it's about being human first. And I'll kind of close with this, the closing of Dear Evan Hansen. So I mentioned it's about a kid who's lonely in high school and he really doesn't fit in. And what he figures out at the end of the musical is pretty powerful. It's that everyone feels lonely. And because we're all lonely, we actually are all much more together than you realize. And I think what everyone here does with your community efforts is not just important for your business or your customer success, it's important for our customers as human beings. And so I hope, if nothing else, you remember that the work you do helps the human beings in your group when they're not feeling like they fit in, when they feel lost, when they feel weird, when they feel like they're not in the right place. It helps them feel a little less lost and a little more found. Thank you very much.